Welcome to another episode, everyone. Another episode, everyone. Have you heard of the Sons of Samoa? Crip gang? Some Samoan individuals, very vicious, very violent. In fact, here they got a hold of someone else, an opposition of theirs, another Samoan, and allegedly shot him in the chest with a 12 gauge. Close range. He did not make it. Let's get into it. Sons of Samoa.
This is the Killer Chronicles.
Killer Chronicles, shout out.
It was May 17th, 1996, in Hayward, California, where 25-year-old Nolan Pamintuan was getting ready for the biggest moment of his life. The following day, he was supposed to marry Rowena Panello in the San Francisco adjacent Daly City in front of a large group of friends and family. Nolan was taking an active role in planning the wedding and had a to-do list mapping out his activities for the following morning. After catching a few hours of sleep at his parents' home in Hayward, California, he was planning to book a hotel room for after the wedding, pick up tuxedos for himself and several others at the wedding party, and, quote, take care of his Aunt Edith.
Man just trying to take care of his aunt. In fact, I misspoke earlier. It was not an opposition of theirs. I can't recall if it was another Samoan or not. We're about to find out, but it was not an opposition. In fact, it was a robbery. Don't mean to spoil it, but I have to correct myself. It was a robbery, I remember. And they was in a stolen car, these individuals. And it was a robbery, and they were trying to rob this. They just happened to be passing by him or something. End up stopping him and shoot him in the chest. Let's see what happened.
Instead, Nolan would suffer through an unspeakable nightmare where he was kidnapped at gunpoint, driven around the Bay Area, robbed of all of his possessions, and executed by men who argued in front of him who was going to kill him, as Nolan begged for his life in vain. They shot him once in the chest with a sawed-off shotgun and left him to die in the middle of a Hayward street, where his body was discovered shortly after midnight on what was to be the day of his wedding. His fiancée, Rowena, was informed of his death just a half hour before the wedding was to begin. And the entire...
Damn, imagine that. She informed that her fiancé, soon-to-be husband in 30 minutes, she hoped, then got shot in the chest with a gate. She found this out. She finds this out 30 minutes before the wedding. That's cold. That's vicious, man. That's crazy. And they're sitting there arguing with each other as to who is about to shoot the man. It's four of them, and they're going back and forth. Whatever they're saying, you do it. No, I'm going to do it. No, you do it. Giving him time to plead and beg them not to shoot him, not to kill him. They did anyway. Robbed him, shot him in the chest. A day before his wedding, they found him at midnight, whatever, the day of his wedding. Now he's out there somewhere on the sidewalk, dead, leaked out with a big old hole in his chest. Damn, that's cold. And then his wife find out 30 minutes before the wedding. Damn. His family and all that. Whoa. That's messed up.
Tragedy could have been avoided if Nolan had just been 2 minutes faster or slower that day. He was targeted simply because the robbers saw him exiting his car right as they were driving by in a stolen van.
Shit. That's anybody. That's me. That's you. Somebody just going in their car. Right? You go to the store, coming out your house, whatever. Just going in your car. That's it. Pull up on you with a gauge, some other stuff. You getting in, kidnap you, tie you up or whatever. You pleading for your life, put one in your chest with a 12 gauge. That's anybody. That could happen to anybody. The man was just going to his car. These dudes are dangerous. That's violent. I don't like people who kill innocent people, bro. Seriously, because that can just be anybody. You in a gang, you gonna beef with somebody and all that. Okay, you call yourself taking care of business. I don't agree with that shit either, but all right. At least you call yourself killing your op or your enemy or whatever. Somebody does something to your family, this sort of stuff. Somebody walking down the street or just going to their car. Nah, man, it's out. That's hands off, because that can be anybody. Somebody's mother, father. Nah.
The perpetrators left clues all over the place, held on to easily identifiable stolen items, and kept clothing splattered with Nolan's blood. So, identifying them was not exactly a challenge for detectives. Within 10 days of the crime, police had arrested 4 suspects, 2 juveniles, one 18-year-old, and a 22-year-old man who was suspected of being the shooter. It turned out that 3 of them were affiliated members of a Crips gang known as the Sons of Samoa, which had started roughly a decade earlier near Los Angeles, and now has a known presence in at least 5 states: California, Hawaii, Washington, and strangely, Alaska and Utah, according to the FBI.
Alaska?
Of the 4, 2 turned snitch and served 16-year prison terms, while the other 2 remain locked up to this day.
Not bad. I was speaking over him. He said 2 of them snitched and served 16-year prison terms, but, well, not surprising. They're very young, but even grown men snitching, so it don't matter that they're young. Even grown men, grown killer, strong, thugged out gang members tell on you quicker, than you can say 1, 2. These days, and hell, even back in the days, you know. But these dudes, he said 2 of them were juveniles, so under 18. 1 was 18, and 1 was 22 years old. So, okay, no wonder they're arguing with each other back and forth. They're kids. 2 juveniles, 15, 16-year-old. These are not seasoned gangsters. These are not seasoned killers. They're arguing back and forth with one another on who's about to do the shooting in front of the dude. Neither one of them wants to do it.
Brothers Ropati and Tautai Sumanu, who were deemed the main perpetrators of the crime. Ropati is on death row after a jury convicted him of murder in Alameda County. Tautai, who may have been given the opportunity to testify against his brother if he held out long enough, instead went a different route. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder with no deal in place, got sentenced to 25 years to life, and tried to take the blame for the murder during Ropati's trial. This is their story, but it's also the story of a little-known gang that sprouted from California's incredibly tiny Samoan population.
And he tried to take the rap for his people, for his brother. He tried to take the rap, and he pled guilty and went on and took his time, 25 to life, and tried to take the case from his crimees or whatever.
Attracted young men who were in search of a cultural identity in a region where Samoans accounted for roughly 1 in every 1,000 residents. Though only 22 years old, Ropati seemed to be living a double life. Named after the Scottish novelist Robert Louis Stevenson, Ropati was a deacon at the First Gospel Samoan Church, which his father ran, where he worked with kids and played gospel songs on bass guitar and drums. His family immigrated to the Bay Area from Samoa, where they operated a banana farm, and also where his mother died when he was just 3 years old. His siblings saw him as a protector, both from local gangs that occasionally picked on them, and from Ropati's own father, who was known to come home drunk and be abusive towards Ropati's stepmom and the children. Outside of his family, he was known as Smurf, a proud member of the Crips gang who spent much of high school flaunting his gang affiliation, jumping people for wearing red, spray painting Crip tags, and BK for Blood Killer at age 18, and for working to start his own subset, the 96th Cherry Street Crips, when he was arrested for murder. Though only 5 feet 8 inches tall, Ropati packed a fearsome punch. He was locally famous for his ability to knock an opponent unconscious with a single blow, which Ropati liked to call his one-hitter quitter. He was his father's firstborn son and was set to inherit a patriarchal role in his family, having recently consented to a full-body traditional Samoan tattoo that was applied with a shark's tooth. He lived in a Hayward property with 23 other family members, which contained a 3-bedroom house and a 500-square-foot outbuilding in the backyard. The police referred to it as a compound. Affiliation with the Sons of Samoa came naturally. The gang started in the mid-1980s in Long Beach, California, but by the 90s had worked its way to Hawaii and across California, including to parts of the Bay Area like San Jose, Oakland, and Hayward, 3 cities where the Semanu family resided. Police in Washington described the SOS as, quote, well known for using intimidation tactics, extortion, drug ripoffs, and homicide. SOS will fight with any gang, but more commonly they war with their rival, the Tongan Crip gangsters. They use a Seattle Mariners symbol and hand signals for SOS. Quote, "They were a very tough group, especially when they had been drinking or were high." Long Beach detective Norm Sorensen told the LA Times in 1990, quote, "They were also low on tolerance. They would fight at the drop of a hat." By the time Ropati hit puberty, other members of his extended family were already part of the SOS, and he simply gravitated to it. In some ways, the gang was unique because it didn't exist completely outside of traditional society, nor were there jumping-in rituals or other forms of hazing required to join. Samoans simply banded together out of necessity. In 2000, the entire Samoan population in Oakland was 614, or 0.15%. A friend of the Semanu family wrote in court records that the gang had, quote, "a heavy presence in San Jose and the Samoan churches, where members, quote, talked about respecting others, especially elders, but away from church they showed a different side. As bad as SOS was, my friends and I did not look on it so much as a criminal gang, but as a kind of club that promoted ethnic brotherhood and backing each other up." Similarly, the SOS in the Bay Area didn't appear to take color wars as seriously as many gangs did throughout the 1990s. While the Blood-Crip rivalry was at a fever pitch in Los Angeles during this time, Ropati lived in his Hayward home with Tony Luli, a 16-year-old who associated with the Bloods and had married Ropati's sister. More recently,
23 people lived in there. He said 23 people lived in there. That's neither here nor there. As long as he had somewhere to stay, they were indoors. But 23 people lived in this place. So this dude is 22 years old. I would not have guessed that. Maybe just because of his size, even though he said he's 5'8", but he's huge. I couldn't tell he was 5'8". He's a big dude, and he's known to have a one-headed quitter, knocking people unconscious. They said, "Sheesh, man. Okay." They done took this dude out, shot him in the chest on his wedding day.
federal prosecutors in San Jose named a subset of the SOS in Monterey, California, as being allied with a local Norteño group known as the Murder Squad that in 2017 worked together to kill rival members of a Sureño gang. In 1996, before the Nolan murder, Luli and Ropati committed a drive-by shooting together, firing 3 shots from a revolver into the Hayward home of rival gang members, but injuring no one. Ropati was also known to rob people of their jackets on the spot, simply by walking up to them, smacking them with the one-hitter quitter, and stripping them down where they were, knocked out cold. In short, his criminal behavior was escalating, and for the most part, Ropati was getting away with it. That brings us to May 17, 1996, when as Nolan was participating in a wedding rehearsal at Daly City, Ropati, his 16-year-old brother Tautai, their brother-in-law 16-year-old Tony Luli, and an 18-year-old extended family member also affiliated with the SOS, Galuvai J. Palega, decided to drive around the area in search of robbery victims. Tony would later say that he knew, quote, something big was going to happen when he saw the Semanu brothers leave the home with guns and donning dark clothing. They used a flathead screwdriver to steal a gold Plymouth Voyager van, then drove around debating who to rob. After passing by a couple potential targets, they attempted to hold up a man, but the intended victim ran away before they could pull off the heist. Back in the van, Ropati loudly chastised his loyal younger brother over the failed attempt. That's when they passed Nolan Pamintuan, who had just parked next to his dad's home on Huntwood Avenue and was about to walk inside. Quote, "Let's go get that guy," Ropati said, instructing Jay, the driver, to turn around. They pulled back around. Tony and Ropati, holding a sawed-off shotgun, jumped out of the van and ordered Nolan inside. He freaked out and offered them a black Movado watch engraved with his wedding date that his fiancée had given him just hours earlier, telling them, quote, "This is all I have." In reality, Nolan also possessed a gold ring, a Gucci watch, a black leather sport coat, an Old Navy pea coat, and boots, but only $3 in cash. The robbers took everything, but became enraged when they discovered the paltry sum in his wallet. Nolan offered to go to a nearby bank ATM and withdraw cash, and continued to beg for his life while they ignored him. An eyewitness later testified seeing Nolan being led out of the van to a local bank ATM by two large men, one of whom he identified as Tautai. The incident was captured on security cameras. Nolan withdrew $300, the daily ATM withdrawal limit, then walked back. Once again, the robbers became angry with the low amount, but Nolan explained that he couldn't withdraw more due to the bank's policy. At that point, he had just minutes to live. The four drove around the area while Tautai and Ropati argued who was to kill Nolan, ignoring his pleas for his life while they did so. It is unclear whether the motive was.
I don't know. Maybe he could have told them, I'm going to go in the bank and go inside of the bank and withdraw everything I have in my account. But I have to go inside. I don't know if they would have, I don't know. I'm not trying to play fucking detective or whatever. In hindsight, it's 2020. When you're in that situation, of course, you don't know what to do. Who of them escorted him to the ATM? So it's not like, because some people may be saying, how come he didn't run or try to break away then? I'm sure first of all, he's not thinking that they're going to kill him. They take him to the ATM, it's caught on camera, they showing their face and this, that, and the other. So he's probably thinking they're not going to kill me. They showed their face, taking me publicly to an ATM. They're not going to kill me now. Broad daylight, apparently. I'm just saying, he probably didn't think about that at the time. I'm sure I probably wouldn't either, in that sort of situation. And again, it's not like they may have said, "Oh, okay," but I don't know. They seem so hungry, so money thirsty. If he'd have told them, and they so disappointed that he can't get more money and doesn't have more money, man has $3. They taking him out over that, ready to take him out over that, and he convinces them to take him to the ATM, and they did it. So they are convincible. So maybe he could have convinced them, well, let me go in the bank. I have such and such amount inside of the bank, and I can take it all out. And then, of course, when you get in there, you can do whatever. Try to make a run for it. Let them know, hoop and holler, hey, I'm being robbed. You got security guards in there with guns and all that. I don't think they're gonna open up fire with a 12 gauge inside of the bank. But I'm just saying, excuse me, as I said, hindsight is 2020, and I'm not blaming the victim or nothing. I mean, he's an innocent person that was just walking to his damn car. Hate that he had to go through something like this and then lose his life. Had it been, extremely traumatizing, extremely traumatic for him, sure he was scared as hell. I would have been. And apparently he was begging for his life, but to no avail. You know, his 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 pleas went on deaf ears or cold-blooded ears.
The anger over the lack of cash, or the desire to eliminate a witness, or both. Tony and Jay would later testify that neither of them wanted to kill Nolan, and Jay said that he pleaded with Ropati to just, quote, knock him out. According to Jay's testimony, the brothers passed the shotgun back and forth several times before one of them shot Nolan once in the chest on East 13th Street. They then piled into the van and drove away while neighbors rushed outside to investigate the gunshot. The police investigation was open and shut. Authorities discovered the discarded van, which was full of Tautai's fingerprints, and from there found an eyewitness to identify Tautai as one of the robbers at the ATM. Conveniently for the cops, all of their suspects lived in the same home. They raided the Hayward compound on May 26th, arresting Jay and Tony at the home, then waiting for the Semanu brothers to return home from church, where they too were taken into custody. All of the stolen items, including the easily identifiable Movado watch, were found either in the home or in Ropati's jacket pocket. Blood splatter from Nolan was also discovered on the jacket, and a sawed-off shotgun believed to be the murder weapon was found in Ropati's brown Dodge. As if all of that wasn't sufficient, Jay and Tony were placed in the same police squad car that was equipped.
Seems sufficient to me. They got them dead to rights, dead bang. They got everything. Got the gun, blood, all on his clothing, the victim's belongings, watch, and all that. Got him on camera at the ATM. I mean, damn, it's all bad. Two of them started snitching. Guess he wasn't one of them. Two of them did. They probably only see how they even needed them to snitch. All this evidence they seemed to have. But then once they snitched, it was really over.
With a microphone, where the cops recorded them talking about how they wished the police wouldn't find the murder weapon and how they intended to say Jay's mom gave him the Gucci watch when they were questioned. That story fell apart during interrogation, and all four were charged with special circumstances murder, making them eligible for life without parole, while Ropati faced the death penalty. Tony was the first to flip. Then he wrote a letter to Jay encouraging him to snitch as well, saying it was for the good of their families. They both took plea deals in September 2000, months before Ropati's trial, contingent upon their testimony. Tao Tai, who idolized his older brother, pleaded guilty to murder even though it meant there was a strong possibility that he would die in prison, and testified that he was the real killer, not Ropati, explaining that he wore his brother's jacket as he fatally shot Nolan. Ropati's wife, similarly, attempted to create an alibi for him, stating that Ropati was with her the entire evening. In addition to the wealth of evidence, prosecutors used emotionally tinged language, describing to jurors how, quote, he left that sweet bridge room to die all alone on a deserted street. Ropati was convicted of everything. During the penalty phase, the defense tried to gain sympathy for their client by bringing up the abuse he suffered as a child, and how he was once jumped at age 14 so badly that he suffered potential brain damage. Public defender Deborah Levy also contrasted him with the serial killers of the era, telling jurors, quote, he is not a Ted Bundy. He is not a Charles Manson. He is not a Jeffrey Dahmer that is going to have a dozen heads in his refrigerator. There is more to him than this one cold-blooded act. It didn't work. Jurors unanimously recommended death, and while there is little to no chance Ropati will be executed, he remains on death row in San Quentin to this day, where he is appealing his case in federal court. Tao Tai, meanwhile, is at Solano State Prison in Vacaville, California, where he is set to go before a parole board in January 2022. Nolan was buried in the tuxedo he intended to wear for his wedding, in the same church where he was to be married. On the day Ropati was sentenced, Rowena did her best to find words to encapsulate her trauma. We'll leave you with this quote. It is just heartbreaking, she said. You were looking forward to something, a really happy part of your life, and to realize that wasn't going to happen, that you will never see this person you love so much ever again. It is just very hard.
Yeah, sure it was. Sure it is. Rest in peace to that individual. That's deep. So Ropati or whatever the hell, he got the death penalty. The two that snitched got 16 years, they said early on. He ended up with the death penalty. Someone else tried to take the case. I mean, this stuff was everywhere. But damn, the death penalty. I mean, I don't know. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. I know some people that have 3 and 4 murders and don't have a death penalty. Never get, they got life in prison or whatever. They don't have a death penalty. Hell, they got serial killers that don't have a death penalty. I don't know, but that was crazy. That was a crazy crime. That was pretty vicious. And again, the most repugnant part of it all is that the man was innocent, just walking to his car. That's the part that bothers me anyway, because that can be anyone. And I just have never agreed with that. Just taking the life of someone who just has nothing to do with nothing. I mean, walking down the damn street. I mean, that's crazy. That makes no sense. Those kind of people are a danger to society because you can't walk down the street. Again, if you taking out somebody that you got a beef with, I'm not saying that that's right, but at least that makes more sense. It makes more sense to me. You argue with someone, you got a beef with someone, or someone does something to your family, or whatever, or even some gang shit, makes more sense because you believe that this is your enemy or whatever. That makes more sense than just somebody walking down the street, walking to their car. I mean, it was a robbery at first, you know. Okay, you robbing somebody, but How do these robberies? How does a robbery turn into that? They didn't even want to do it. They arguing back and forth. Who gonna do it? They ain't want to do it. Somebody else said, "Man, just knock him out. You got one hit a quitter. You got the one punch. Just knock him out." Yeah, don't kill him for what? You don't know him. He ain't finna do nothing. I mean, shoot him in the chest with a 12 gauge. Damn, just knock him out. Like I said, it could have been me. It could have been anybody just walking to their car. Shakes. That's it though, man. Sons of Samoa. You know. Of course, I know of them. I've heard of them. That was crazy right there. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Stay safe and stay free, people.